I want to welcome everyone by saying Uhuru, which means freedom. We are so glad that you chose to participate in Uhuru Furniture MLK Day program and volunteer project. This is an African community-led program that carries on the same work and struggle that MLK led for African freedom, self-determination, economic development, and it gives everyone from all walks of life a way to contribute to the positive forward motion of history. I am Bob Myers. I am Bob Myers, your MC for today, and Truck and Uhuru on the Move coordinator at UFC. I am a member of African People's Socialist Party, and I have been working at Uhuru Furniture since 2016. We are asking everyone to please mute yourself during the presentation and put your comments and questions in the chat. We will read them on air. I want to start by recognizing our leadership, the founder and leader of Uhuru Movement, Chairman Omali Yesatella, who is responsible for this institution and so many others. Chairman Omali has led the Uhuru Movement since the 1960s. We will be showing clips of one of his presentations in this program. I also want to appreciate the direct leadership of Uhuru Furniture Deputy Chair Owner Zanae Yesatella, who is the president of the African Peoples and Education and Defense Fund. All the Uhuru Movement institutions of economic development throughout the world. She has brought so much to the development of this store and led the way for Uhuru Furniture to survive, even thrive under COVID. Uhuru Furniture and Collectibles Philly opened in 1994 and not only brings top quality, low price furniture and houseware here in North Philly, but it shows what APDF mission to end the disparity the Black community faces here in Philadelphia and throughout the US, and what African economic self-determination looks like in the real world. This is much more than a regular store. This is a Black community-led self-reliance institution. It is an economic development project of nonprofit African People Education and Defense Fund. It is one of over 50 institutions the Uhuru Movement has built around the US and the world to transform the oppression conditions of life faced by African people here in North Philly and everywhere. It is organizing our African community to feed, clothe, and employ ourselves. This is what we mean by building African self-determination. We are doing it. Everyone who is participating in MLK Day is making an important contribution to Uhuru Furniture and APDF. Historic leaders like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X worked for African self-determination and economic development, but the conditions of life for the African community are worse than in the 50s and 60s, with greater level of poverty, homelessness, and impoverishment. Here in Philly, before COVID, there was a 23-year disparity in life expectancy of a Black baby born in Strawberry Mansion and a white baby born in Fairmont. That disparity has now increased by at least 2 years. Also, before COVID, in this majority African and Puerto Rican city, only 2.5% of all businesses were Black owned, but an estimate 55% of Black businesses were forced to close due to COVID. That is what we are contending with. And that is why your participation and support for this institution is so crucial. Another note, we are rescheduling today's volunteer project due to inclement weather, and we will be talking to you later in the program about how you can sign up to get a rain check for another volunteer shift. We had a goal to get at least 5,000 door hangers today, and we still want to get that done in the next couple of weeks or so. We are starting the program with a powerful, creative African revolutionary percussionist, writer, teacher, unifier, and longtime friend of the Uhuru Movement, and regular performer on many programs of the Uhuru Movement. Karen Smith, Uhuru.
Uhuru, here I am, live. Thank you very much for having me. I just want to take this time to do some reflection Since in this almost 2 years now being in this state of stillness plus and losing many in the process, I just want to kind of give homage to those who have gone on and now are ancestors, probably also within the Uhuru movement as well. But the names that I know, some of them you might know, some of them you might not know. You can also share as well during this time, any names you want to give homage to. I'm going to play this instrument. It's called a steel tongue drum. Bell hooks. Cicely Tyson. William Thomas Jr. Gary Smalls. Barry Harris. Lucy Barnes. Margaret Lake. Aaliyah Vance. Mo Brooker. Ron Bob Sample. Lamont Dixon. Safa Robinson. Rhonda Stubbins White. Melvin Van Peebles. Sandra Turner Barnes. Raymond Cardboard King. Sam Reed. Barry Harris. Con Jamal. James M. Toomey. Beverly Bonner. Doc Gibbs.
Wow, that was powerful, Karen. Thank you, Karen Smith, for that uplifting performance. We always start our MLK volunteer project with some of the true history from the perspective of the African poor and working class. We're the ones who built the wealth of this country. Right now, through the media, the movies, and in our schools, that history is told from the perspective of the slave master. But this is the true story. Show the video.
Human civilization began in Africa and flourished for thousands of years. African people had developed sciences, healthy communities, a prosperous economy, and rich culture. When Europeans were poor and hungry in the 1400s, they attacked Africa and began 600 years of theft, enslavement, rape, and overall oppression of African people. The European and U.S. economies were built off of African labor and resources stolen at gunpoint. Africans have always resisted this oppression, from Queen Nzinga, who led armies to hold off slavers in West Africa for 30 years, to Harriet Tubman, who led over 300 enslaved Africans to freedom in the U.S., to Marcus Garvey, who in the early 1900s built an organization with over 11 million members and supporters, United for African Freedom and Independence. Even after the U.S. officially ended chattel slavery, there were laws to keep Africans locked into an unjust parasitic social system. But the African community fought this too. In the segregated South, the African community was increasingly resisting the extreme oppression from the U.S. government and white society. A turning point in this resistance, which gave birth to the civil rights movement of the 1950s, was the Montgomery bus boycott.
It started with a woman named Rosa Parks in Montgomery. And Montgomery, like all of the South, had segregated buses. In interstate buses like this one, and in city buses, the whites sat in the front, the blacks in back. If more whites got on, the blacks had to give them the middle and back seats too. On December 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat to a white passenger.
The front seats were occupied, and there's one man, a white man, standing. And at this point, the driver asked us to stand up and let him have those seats. And when none of us moved at his first words, he said, "Y'all make it light on yourselves and let me have those seats." And when the policeman approached me, one of them spoke and asked me if the driver had asked me to stand. I said, yes. He said, "Why don't you stand up?" I said, "I don't think I should have to stand up." And I asked him, I said, "Why do you push us around?" He said, "I do not know, but the law is a law and you're under arrest."
This was not the first time a black person had defied the bus segregation in Montgomery. It was not Mrs. Parks' first time. It was her first arrest. Edie Nixon went to the police station to bail her out. Edie Nixon and other black leaders called for a one-day bus boycott. In some cities, it would have been impossible to organize 40,000 people in 2 days. But Black Montgomery had a core of activists in the Women's Political Council, and they distributed these boycott notices all over the city.
But the bus passed right down in front of my house, you know, and I got up to see it, and several buses passed. I was late for work because I was trying to see how many buses was empty, and they were totally empty.
The one-day boycott was a success. That night, a mobilized black community turned out for a meeting at the Holt Street Baptist Church and voted unanimously to continue the boycott. The keynote speaker at Holt Street Church was a new preacher in town, Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. He was only 26 and was almost unknown outside his own congregation. King wasn't sure he should accept when his fellow ministers and other leaders asked him to head the new Montgomery Improvement Association and the boycott. But they wanted him in part because he was new in Montgomery. Before the boycott, 2/3 of the bus riders were black. After December 5th, there were almost no blacks at the segregated bus stops or on the buses. They walked, and they created a complex system that used private cars to carry thousands of people each day.
We asked for persons who had cars and would voluntarily put them in the transportation pool to let us know and what time they could be used. And in that way, we could know when we would have cars and where they had to go to pick up people. People would call in and say, I'm out here on Cloverdale Road in such a block, and I'll be ready at such and such a time. But this was being done all through the day, and we would know what time they were supposed to be picked up and where they were.
It was really surprising because we thought, well, maybe some of the people would continue to ride the bus. But after all, they had been mistreated in so many different ways until I guess they were tired, and they just decided that they just wouldn't ride.
The black community was inspired by its own success. They held meetings with the mayor and the bus company and found they could stand up to the city commissioners. The boycott's second Christmas was approaching. Downtown stores were hurt, but neither the city nor the marchers would compromise. On November 13th, 1956, the U.S. Supreme Court broke the deadlock, ruling unanimously that Montgomery's bus segregation was unconstitutional. That day, the Ku Klux Klan rode and walked the black neighborhoods again. This time, the blacks just watched, unmoved and unafraid.
The decision rendered by the Supreme Court yesterday was a victory. But it wasn't a victory for colored folks. Don't make that victory that small. It wasn't a victory for 50,000 Negroes of Montgomery. It wasn't merely a victory for 16 million Negroes of America. That was a victory for justice and goodwill. Now, what will be our mode of action in the light of this decision? After thinking through this question very seriously, the Executive Board of the Montgomery Improvement Association recommends that the 11-month-old protest against the city buses will be called off, and that the Negro citizens of Montgomery, Alabama will return to the buses on a non-segregated basis. Are you ready for the question? All in favor, let it be known by standing on your feet. It seems that it is carried unanimously.
If the Negro is to be free, he must move down into the inner resources of his own soul and sign with the pen and ink of self-assertive manhood his own Emancipation Proclamation. Don't let anybody take your manhood. Be proud of our heritage. As somebody said earlier tonight, we don't have anything to be ashamed of. Somebody told a lie one day. They couched it in language. They made everything black, ugly, and evil. Look in your dictionary and see the synonyms of the word black. There's always something degrading and low and sinister. Look at the word white. It's always something pure, high, and clean. But I want to get the language right tonight.
I want to get the language so right that everybody here will cry out, yes, I'm black, I'm proud of it, I'm black and beautiful.
Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated on April 4th, 1968 by the U.S. government under COINTELPRO, the FBI's counterintelligence program. But that was not the end. From the civil rights movement of the 1950s emerged the Black Power movement of the 1960s, headed by powerful leaders such as Malcolm X.
We are African, and we happen to be in America. We're not American. We are people who formerly were Africans who were kidnapped and brought to America. Our forefathers weren't the pilgrims. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. The rock was landed on us. We were brought here against our will. We were not brought here to be made citizens. We were not brought here to enjoy the constitutional gifts that they speak so beautifully about today. Because we weren't brought here to be made citizens today, now that we've become awakened to some degree and we begin to ask for those things which they say are supposedly for Americans, they look upon us with hostility and unfriendliness. If you're interested in freedom, you need some judo, you need some karate, you need all the things that will help you fight for freedom. Nationalism is the wave of the present and the future. It is nationalism that's bringing freedom to oppressed people all over the world. It was nationalism that brought freedom to the Algerians. It was nationalism that brought freedom to the Nigerians and to the Ghanaians. It was nationalism that brought freedom to the people of Uganda and Tanganyika and Sudan and Somaliland. The Africans didn't get it by sitting in. They didn't get it by waiting in. They didn't get it by singing "We Shall Overcome." They got it through nationalism. And you and I will get it through nationalism. What is it? What is it that makes it difficult for the philosophy of nationalism to spread among the so-called Negroes? Number one, they think they have a stake in America. They think they have an investment in this country, which we do. We invested 310 years of slave labor, 310 years, every day of which your and my mother and father worked for nothing. Not 8 hours a day. There was no union in that day. They worked from sun up until sundown, from can't see in the morning until can't see at night. They never had a day off. And on Sunday, they were allowed to sit down and sing about when they died, they wouldn't be slaves no more. When they died, they wouldn't be slaves no more. They'd go up in the sky, and every day would be Sunday. That's a shame. And it is that 310 years of slave labor that went in, that was my and your contribution into this particular economy and political system. They can give us the back pay. Let's join in. If this is what the Negro wants, let's join in. Let's show him how to struggle. Let's show him how to fight. Let's show him how to bring about a real revolution. Let's make him stop jiving. You don't need a debate. You don't need a filibuster. You need some action.
By the end of 1969, the U.S. government had killed Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and more than 28 members of the Black Panther Party, including Chairman Fred Hampton, one of its most important leaders, and many other courageous African leaders. But the Uhuru movement, under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, has never stopped struggling to keep the Black Power movement alive. The Uhuru movement has moved forward on many fronts to lead the work to win African freedom and self-determination today. As Black Panther leader Huey P. Newton said, "You might not have the Black Panther Party, but you have the Uhuru House. You might not have the Black Panther newspaper, but you have the burning spear." So they haven't done anything by crushing one organization.
Only thing they say
in the computer right here. All right. Next, we want to show 2 short videos. Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Next, we have a clip of Chairman Omali Yesitela, the founder and leader of the Uhuru Movement, Chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, and leader of the African Socialist International. Chairman was speaking at the Uhuru House in St. Louis, Missouri on MLK Day 2020. Here's the video.
philosophically committed to nonviolence. We love King. I was not about to be a King follower, but we love King. He taught Africans how to mobilize. He moved the African people into action. People like to say, well, King was all this and he just believed in nonviolence. No, King believed in struggle. Even though it was nonviolent, he was an activist. He challenged the oppressed. He said America is the what? Greatest purveyor of violence on earth. He was not an Obama who was sending drones and murdering people around the world. He said America is the greatest purveyor on earth. And he mobilized against him. He was one of the first to organize against Vietnam. And they want to compare Obama, who's organizing to kill people all over the Middle East and in Africa, with King. So he mobilized African people, and this is part of what made him dangerous. Not the question of violence and nonviolence, because we had that part of it tied up. What made King a threat was his ability to mobilize masses, millions of African people, including those of us who didn't believe in nonviolence. So King was assassinated, as we know, on April 4th, 1968. But something else was happening. Because what had happened with the Civil Rights Movement, despite the fact that this movement was funded by white liberals, despite the fact that this movement represented an alliance between the liberal sector of the white ruling class and the liberal sector of the African middle class, despite that, it was something that needed masses of African people, and that's why King was so important. It mobilized masses of African people, sharecroppers. Preachers didn't turn out that tough in these mobilizations. Ordinary people did. Fannie Lou Hamer turned out, and young people, students. Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee was born in this process, and Fannie Lou Hamer became a part of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And the thing is that the masses were to be the fodder, were to be the forces that they would use to drive this struggle that would allow the African petty bourgeoisie to ascend, to integrate into the capitalist system, and the white bourgeoisie to be able to carry out its mission, its interest in terms of having African people to facilitate the need to enhance production in this country subsequent to the Second Imperialist War. Okay? Yeah. Before the Second Imperialist War, England had a monopoly on what was coming out of India. England had a monopoly of what was coming out of Nigeria in terms of resources and things like that. France and Germany, all of these were the ones who were primarily getting the loot that was coming from Africa and from other parts of the world. Now the United States is the big dog after this war. And so you have all these resources coming. And I just want to say that when King was killed, he was beloved by African people. But something had happened. They had mobilized all these people, Africans, and we were just to be, the workers were just to be, to go out when the preacher said go out and demonstrate. But we suffered in this country. Lynching was the national pastime in this country, or another thing they used to call nigger knocking. White people get bored, don't have nothing to do, go out and do some nigger knocking. Go and beat up some Africans, lynch some Africans. This was tradition in this country. And so, so you had this movement, and Africans were more and more involved in organized, and this is critical, organized resistance, organized struggle. And so what began to happen is people like Fannie Hamer, ordinary African people, got involved, and what they did not quite understand, the rulers, is that the masses, once involved in changing the world, changing their circumstances, become changed themselves. You can't get the masses involved in some social movement like that to change society or to change the world without the people becoming changed. And this is what happened. So we had this incredible movement sweeping this country, but it was also at the same time sweeping the rest of the world. Vietnam, King intervened in the Vietnam question, which is one of the things that made him problematic. All over Africa. In Cuba, just a few years later, Cuba would become independent as a consequence of the struggle that was being made there. And then what you saw happening in this country, of course, was Malcolm X, the extraordinary Malcolm X, the profound critic of the nonviolent movement in this country, the most fundamental force in terms of ideologically taking African people beyond this whole question of civil rights and saying that we got to do for self, that we self-reliant. So what kind of revolution is this? You're talking about sitting down on the toilet next to white people. So that's no revolution. And then he talked to us and said revolution is based on what? Land. And he told us that we had to struggle. He gave us the example of the Vietnamese. He said, don't talk to us about the odds are against you. Why do you care about the odds? He said, you didn't care about the odds when the white man sent you to China to fight 1 billion Chinese. When you went to Korea, you fighting 1 billion Chinese and you talking about the odds. So it didn't mean nothing when you was fighting a white man. Why should it mean something to you when you fight for yourself? Come on. Right, this is what Malcolm, he was a fundamental critic of Martin Luther King. He was assassinated 1965. King assassinated 1968. Lumumba murdered 1960. And Nkrumah overthrown 1966, I should say. And all of this stuff was happening. Fred Hampton in 1969. Wow. More than 30 members of the Black Panther Party killed in 1968 alone. Wow. Wasn't just King. It was a movement for liberation of black people that came under assault. Come on. And this movement had begun to develop beyond just trying to integrate with white people toward taking control of our own lives, our own destiny, because that was what thrust King into motion. That's what thrust black people into motion. Somebody stole our capacity to create lives for ourselves. Yes. They took our future from us. And King, regardless of what he thought he was going to be about, was involved in the consequence of our future having been robbed from us by imperial white power, the right to be a self-determining people. And you don't have the right to self-determination just because somebody said you integrated. So you're integrated. You don't have the right to self-determination anymore. You had the right to self-determination before Europe attacked Africa. Now you don't have it. And because you don't have it, you have a King. You have a Malcolm. You have Black Panthers. You have all these forces around the world struggling about that fact that we no longer had control of our ability to create and recreate life for ourselves. That's what Black Power Blueprint is about. That's how we fall in what King was about, because we are struggling to guarantee that we have the ability to control and create life for ourselves and other people. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. And so don't let people take you off on this. Let me tell you, when they killed King, think about this. King was the minister of nonviolence. When they killed King, masses of African people rose up throughout this country. In fact, it got so serious that they had to surround the White House with tanks. Literally. I'm on the phone with Stokely at the time. I'm in Florida, and Stokely running around strapped and what have you, and he's in D.C. And he's talking about what is happening in D.C. on the ground there in Washington. It's happening in other places, but in D.C., they had to put tanks around the White House because they didn't know just how well organized we might be and whether we had come to our senses. And Malcolm, the consequences of Malcolm X had been such that we go for power instead of going for something else, right? So there was uprising in more than 100 cities in this country when they killed King. 43 men and women were killed in this process, in this struggle. 3,500 were injured. 27,000 African people were arrested. And they had to use 58,000 National Guardsmen and Army troops that joined the local, state, and police forces to put that uprising down. This is when the King of Peace was killed. Yeah. This is when the father of nonviolence was killed. This was the response by the oppressed, colonized African people in this country to his death. This is what he meant to us, and now that all that's been suppressed. And instead of King's dream, if you will, that Malcolm X talked about tonight now, instead of the objectives that King fought for, you don't have any of that. Yeah, come on. What you have is a Martin Luther King Highway, a Martin Luther King Boulevard, a Martin Luther King Street, and you get off on Monday on Martin Luther King holiday. Yeah. That ain't what King fought for. No. King did not fight for a damn holiday. He did not die for African people and have a damn holiday. He fought for African people to be free, and he knew that they would kill him. He knew it. If you ever look at the last speech of Martin Luther King, it's clear. Yes. And the American government killed King. Wasn't Trump. I want to be clear on that. Come on now. Wasn't Trump. It was the American government that killed King. It was the same government that killed Lumumba. It was the same government that chased Che Guevara down in Bolivia and killed him in 1967. It was the same government that killed Malcolm X. It was the same government that overthrew Nkrumah. All of them conspired to make sure that black people on this planet Earth would never have our freedom and control of our own destiny. That's why we have Black Power Blueprint here. That's why we have it here. So we want to continue that mission. I know I've spoken too long now. I've exhausted my 10 minutes, I'm sure. But I want to say, brothers and sisters, that we have to capture our own future. Yes, we do. King knew he was going to die. You cannot allow fear to stop you. Fear should not be able to turn us into cowards. No. See, you can be afraid. You crazy if you fighting this white man and you ain't scared. Because you've seen the evidence of what he will do to you. He dropped atomic bombs on helpless people around this world. Yeah. In Japan in particular. Civilians, murdered them all. And so you know what he'll do. The lynchings was the pastime. And everybody, we are faced with all kinds of lynching today, right here at the White House. In broad daylight, they do it to us. Broad daylight, they take our communities. And this stuff of our communities, why do you think it's not just happening in St. Louis? Look at Chicago, look at Detroit, look at Washington, D.C., look at Harlem, New York, everywhere. There's power of a counterinsurgency that controls African people. If you don't believe, if you don't believe that the United States government has a permanent in place. Contingency plan to deal with black people, you out of your mind. Because we are fundamental to anything that approximates freedom in this country and around the world. We always have been. So, brothers and sisters, I want to appreciate you being so patient with me. And let's build this campaign. Let's do it. It can be ours. It should be ours. And you have one of the greatest criminal enterprises in this country right here in St. Louis. They do it in broad daylight. They use Negroes who call themselves elected officials in most instances. Look at what we were able to do right here. The people were able to do right here. No elected official did a damn thing to make this happen. Look how we've already changed North St. Louis. Look at how it's wrapped up and down here as a consequence of this project. Because the African working class, we have built everything they've got for them. Now we're building for ourselves, and we're calling on all our allies to join us in that process. Uhuru. Music.
Okay. Next, we want to show 2 short videos to update you on the work that APDF and the Uhuru movement are doing in St. Louis to show us the way forward. We're renovating abandoned buildings to push back gentrification, revitalize and uplift and empowers African community. We're creating a model for what needs to be done to transform the conditions of life for African people right here in Philadelphia and in every city in this country and in the world. Here's the videos.
The 1960s, when you live under colonial, they will tell you what they did in the 1960s. The 1960s, when you live under colonial domination, they have a legal capitalist system. Then they deny African people the ability to participate in the legal capitalist system. And then they impose on our communities an illegal capitalist system. They talk about the dope trade. There was no dope trade. There was a dope economy that was imposed on our community. So if any money came into the community, the dope man brought the money in. If we paid the phone bill, the dope man made it possible. If we paid the rent, sent our children to school, that's when you live under colonial domination and you don't have control of your own economy. We are creating control of our own commodity economy right now in the middle of North St. Louis, in the place that they said there is no future. We say there is a future. That future is black power. We say buy black, but go beyond that, buy black power. Because just because you black don't mean that you for black power. We're talking about creating our own separate, independent economy that can feed, clothe, and house ourselves, and we start small.
The Black Power Blueprint means that I will not want everybody to enjoy and get a chance to see another side of North St. Louis.
The Black Power Blueprint in North St. Louis was born following the police murder of Mike Brown in 2014. The Black Power Blueprint is testimony to the fact that Mike Brown and the hundreds of other Black people killed by the colonial police did not die in vain. The African People's Education and Defense Fund and Black Star Industries believe we must go beyond protest. We must build institutions of economic and political power in the hands of the Black working class community. In 2017, we initiated the Black Power Blueprint in North St. Louis under the bold and innovative leadership of Onazene Yeshitela, President of the African People's Education and Defense Fund, and we have already transformed our community. We purchased and renovated the Uhuru House at 4101 West Florissant Avenue, which was ready for use by early 2018. We bought 2 adjacent buildings down the street at College and West Florissant. In 2019, we demolished the corner building, which is slated to become a community basketball court. Even during the pandemic, we didn't miss a beat, and throughout the year 2020, we completed the stage in the outdoor space, installed a wrought iron fence, and then planted the garden.
This is possible because you're here.
We completely renovated the 4-plex apartment building on College Avenue that will provide housing for our African Independence Workforce Training Program for our brothers and sisters coming out of the prison system. We also demolished 2 other nearby buildings on West Florissant to make way for retail shops and contracted with the LRA for property designated for an African women's facility. In 2021, we installed an electronic sign on the side of the Uhuru House. We had a huge victory in June 2021 when we launched our One Africa, One Nation Farmers Market with a grant from the USDA. The initiative of the Black Power Blueprint has mobilized the North St. Louis African community and won supporters, volunteers, and donors from every part of the city and around the world. Some make donations as a stand of reparations to the African community.
We believe in the democratic anti-colonial right to be able to have community control of every aspect of our lives.
Many community members have expressed what the Black Power Blueprint means to them.
You see the money going back into the community.
We want to build our neighborhoods to get our families back.
Volunteer and donate at blackpowerblueprint.org.
Next, I'm honored to introduce our keynote speaker, Yesterday Uhuru Miller, President of the African National Women's Organization and a leading member of the African People's Socialist Party, speaking from us from Maryland. Uhuru.
Uhuru, comrades, thank you so much for providing the opportunity for me to be a part of your program today on this very important day. As stated, I am the president of the African National Women's Organization, which is a mass organization that was founded by the African People's Socialist Party. And our primary objective is to bring African women into revolutionary political life. And we do this through our campaigns, we do it through political action, we do it through any mode that we can to really recruit African women to take a stance of making the revolution in practice and through your support of the organization. So if you're interested in the African National Women's Organization, I encourage you to go to anwouhuru.org. I also just want to pay a real appreciation to our Chairman Omali Yeshitela of the African People's Socialist Party, whose 50 years of relentless struggle has really, this cannot even be captured in anything that I could say today. It's just an immense feat that this comrade has really taken on to really build a worldwide movement of African people who are self-centered, who are about making the African revolution, who care about the future of African people and our own future in this world. Recognizing that every single effort that we have put forward is being contested by US imperialism and imperialism around the world. And so, you know, this day where we talk about Martin Luther King Jr. and all of the efforts that he put forward to give some release for African people, and the movement that surrounded Martin Luther King Jr., which included very dynamic forces who were really engaged in attacking the system and holding its feet to the fire to ensure that African people can come out of the places that imperialism has put us in. Because when we look at where we are today, we call this progress, but it isn't progress, really. It's progress from the starting point of when Europe invaded Africa, attacked African people, and robbed us of our self-determination. So every step that we're taking right now is within the construct of US imperialism to try to claw our way back out of that so that we can actually have self-determination. But true self-determination has to be had through making the African Revolution. If we expect this government or any government in the world really to really respect and honor African people, then we ourselves have to respect and honor ourselves and fight for our own liberation. So I really appreciate, what the chairman has said in the videos prior to me that really focused in on the sentiment of Martin Luther King Jr. and the movement, the civil rights movement, and what their expectations were. But we could all, looking at it now, 58 years later, and seeing that the conditions of African people, although they may be different, they really haven't changed. The balance of power hasn't changed, and African people don't have ownership over our own lives. We see that there are more African elected officials, that there are more African police officers, and there are more Africans who are being voted into Congress, and even have a African and Indian vice president. But those things don't mean or equal the equality that African people need. And I don't mean equality with white people, because I just want to make that clear, because if we are equal to white people, that makes it just as bad as them. We have to be better than that. We have to be on the mode of establishing for ourselves the world that we want to see. And if we are striving for equality with white people, then what we're saying is that we want to be Black capitalists, we want to be Black imperialists, and that's not at all what we want to see ourselves in the future. So Martin Luther King Jr. was against that. He was against the wars. He was against the oppression of our people. And he stood as a bastion of strength for a whole bunch of Africans, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of African people, not only in the United States, but around the world, when it came to really fighting for the rights that were robbed of us because of the attack on Africa and the advent of capitalist colonialism. And today in 2022, right, we're in 2022 now, we are still faced with those issues. So while Martin Luther King had this dream of that we all know of because of his famous speech, the African People's Socialist Party is wanting to share with you our promise. And our promise is that we promise to do everything that we say we're going to do. And it's not so much of a dream, but we have this vision that we're executing every day. And the videos that you saw preceding me are the promises that are coming true every single day within our movement, and that is expanding and impacting so many African people, not just in St. Louis or Philadelphia, but everywhere that the African People's Socialist Party is. We are around the world, and I'm really happy to be a part of this movement. I joined in 2010 through one of our mass organizations. And one thing that I've always said to myself is that, all of my ideas were cool, right? I always had these great ideas. I had this great analysis around what was happening in the world. I don't know if it was great, but I had an analysis of what was happening in the world. And I had an understanding about how US imperialism, I didn't call it that at the time, but how the World Bank or the IMF or these sorts of institutions that enforce capitalism on the world's people and then robs them of their resources, what it has done to Africa and African communities around the world. And then when I met the party, I was really impressed and won by the political analysis. And I couldn't help but to join and to take the next step, after coming into one of the mass organizations, the All African People's Development and Empowerment Project, which is the organization that focuses on health, education, and agriculture. I spent some years in that, but while I was in that organization, I did join the party. And by joining the party, it really helped to elevate, the many times that I can be introduced to a higher level of political analysis and myself be taught and learned and become a dialectician myself. And then, of course, becoming the president of the African National Women's Organization in 2015 and being entrusted with one of the most important organizations of this movement to deal with the issues of African women, to look at the special oppression of African women, not just in the United States, but around the world, and to use the struggles that that has been caused because of capitalist colonialism as a rallying tool for African women to fight back. And that's what we have been doing over the years. And our promise from the party to everyone who's watching today is that, we promise to do the work, and we are doing the work, and it's evident. And we are hoping that you are following not just our economic work, which is completely important because it really represents the independent African economy, but follow the political work, the work of our organizations who are out here working with masses of African people throughout the world. We've had a anti-COVID campaign for a very long time, where we have, since the pandemic started, and telehealth programs. We have Uhuru Kijiji Child Care Collective. We have economic institutions and Zenzele Consignment and Decolonize and Uzi. We've had I'm trying to figure out all of them, but I can't remember everything at this moment. But as I said, you should definitely tune into these organizations to learn more about our work and the long reach of the Uhuru movement all over the world. It's critically important that everybody else knows that you have an opportunity through this work to participate, whether you become a member of this organization or this movement, or you volunteer with your time and your efforts, or you support, or you become a vendor, or you do whatever it needs to do to be a part of the African Revolution. Everything is open and available during this process, because the imperialist has all these ways that you can participate in imperialism, how we can be okay with capitalism, how we can be lured into the promise of this two-parent household, picket fence, dog, children, but that comes at a price. And if it comes at all, and African people have an opportunity to define for ourselves what it is that we desire as a nation, and to see ourselves as a nation one, right? Because the world, US imperialism, or capitalist imperialism, has told us that we are not one people, no matter where we are, that we are African American, we are Jamaican, we are Nigerian, we are Black Brit, we are all these things, but we're not together. And these identities have been created for us by colonialism. It has robbed us of our national homeland, still to this day, and with increasing amounts of pressure on the African homeland, and told us that we were supposed to be all of these things, which robbed us of our nationhood. And I'm happy to see that more and more, the African people are discounting those notions of imperialism and colonialism, and removing that. But more work needs to happen. So the African People's Socialist Party is forging forward to make that happen. And so, how much time do I have left? Just want to make sure I'm not going over.
3 minutes. 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Okay, got it. Thank you. And so, the African People's Socialist Party right now is engaged in a process where we are organizing for our third plenary of our seventh Congress. Seventh Congress happened in 2018, and this is the third plenary following that Congress that really showcases the entire work. So if you thought and you were engaged with some of the snippets that you saw here today, we have a 4-day program slated for you, so that you can learn more, and that if you feel compelled to join. And so we encourage everybody to go to the APSP plenary, plenary.org, to find out more about our plenary. This is going to be an amazing event. It's going to show our 50-year history, what we've done in those 50 years, how we've developed, how we've expanded. You're going to hear reports from every single sector of our work, of our movement, and you're going to be wowed and floored by it. And you're going to want to join if you haven't joined today or are joined at another point in time. That this work is really important for us to really move forward. And African people have to get on board. African people will get on board, because we have no other choice but to really, organize ourselves. And the African People's Socialist Party is not just, and the movement is not just some fly-by-night movement, but it's a movement that is led by political theory of African internationalism. It is a movement that is guided by a revolutionary understanding, that has a vision for ourselves as African people, a vision for us wherever we live in the United States or anywhere else around the world, but also a primary vision for Africa. And we have an Africa plan. where I don't know if anybody else has an Africa plan, but we do. Our Africa plan is to recapture our resources on the continent of Africa, but that first comes by organizing African people everywhere in defense of Africa, not just in talk or in our side conversations, but is to organize African people and our allies to really fight for Black power, that the Black power in the hands of the African working class. And that requires a dedication to the leadership of the African working class, taking power and control of our resources on our motherland, our homeland, where the whole entire world robs us of our resources and does not give anything to the African population. And so we're saying that we're organizing in those instances to capture that power and give it back to the African working class. So at this plenary that I mentioned, you're going to find out more about it. You're going to be so, I've just seen all the presentations. It's going to be a magnificent observation, a magnificent display of our work. And so I just want to encourage, everyone to participate in that plenary if you're on today by going to apspplenary.org and learning about and hopefully joining the movement to really destroy capitalist imperialism and to bring down the social order that continues to oppress and exploit and kill Black people and other oppressed people around, colonized oppressed people around the world. And the time is now. We don't want to say that in 10 years or 20 years, we're still dealing with the same issues, because that's what we said 20 years ago. We didn't think we would be dealing with the same issues, but we're here today. And so the time is now, and calling on everybody to be a part of this work and really appreciate, the Uhuru Furniture Store, the African People Education and Defense Fund, and all of the organizations of the Uhuru movement who continue to complete the vision and challenge the vision and build the vision out so that it can expand to every African person on the planet. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you so much, Conrad Yezajay. That was a powerful and moving presentation. In a minute, we are turning the floor over to you. Please let us know what you thought of the presentations and videos we just heard. Tell us why you choose to volunteer at Uhuru Furniture on MLK Day, and if you would like to get involved, and feel free to ask any questions.
Uhuru, while you're thinking of your questions, we also, and I'm Ruby, I am the volunteer. I'm honored to be the volunteer coordinator here at Uhuru Furniture and a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, which is an organization based in the white community that works under the leadership of the Uhuru movement to organize white people for reparations to the African community. And this is how we can participate in supporting this crucial movement. And we want to call on everybody here to make a donation today to support the crucial work that the African People's Education and Defense Fund is doing. We saw a little bit, we saw some videos showing some of the work that's going on in St. Louis. You can see this is not just talk. This is transforming the conditions that the Black community faces on the ground. It showed the farmers market, which is organizing African farmers and bringing together a farmers market in the middle of a food desert that will operate every week starting in April. It showed the Uhuru House that's been built. It showed the place which the money has been raised for the basketball court, and that is going to be opened. They're breaking ground this spring as soon as it warms up. And Uhuru Furniture is one of those over 50 institutions that is on the ground transforming the conditions that exist here, creating jobs, creating employment, providing low cost, top quality furniture in the heart of a really underserved African community in North Philadelphia. And this shows the way forward. This is the store, the Black Power Blueprint projects in St. Louis. Those are creating a model of what transformation can look like. We are going beyond protest, as it talked about in the video, and transforming the conditions of life that African people face in the real world, led by Black, poor, and working people. This is what is changing the conditions that benefits all of humanity. And today, we want to raise $500 to benefit these programs to support APDF and all the work that's going on around the country and world. You think we can do that, Bob?
Absolutely.
All right, we can do it. Okay, so here's how you donate. In the chat, in both Zoom and Facebook, is the link of where to donate and how to donate. And I am going to donate $50, and I want to see who can match or exceed that. And you know, we're going to be talking in a minute about, you know, we did have to cancel the volunteer project because of the weather. We're going to talk about how we're going to, you know, reschedule that so everybody can still participate. But you know, please dig deep and donate and let us know in the chat how much you're donating, and then we can announce it.
I'd like to donate $50 too, Ruby.
Uhuru. I want to donate too. Uhuru. Allie's don't.
Allison is donating $50. Uhuru. President Yesterday is donating $25. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Waiting for a minute.
I guess you could say, you know, see if there's any questions or comments. You could say that.
All right. So, Uhuru, Conrad Renee is making a donation of $50 as well.
Oh, wow. We are at $225.
Please put your comments or questions in the chat and we will read them and answer questions. Let us know why you choose to volunteer at Uhuru Furniture on MLK Day, and feel free to ask us or AMWO President Yesterday any questions. Uhuru, we have Jamie Hetman that's going to donate $50 as well.
We're at $275. We're over halfway there.
Uhuru, Conrad Tiffany Murphy donated $25.
We're at 300. Do we have to ask if we have any questions?
Do anyone have any questions? Just type it in the comments.
Let me see if anybody wants to make a statement.
Uhuru, Monica Bowden donated $20.
Uhuru, Monica.
Uhuru, Michelle has pledged $25.
Oh, Matum is donating $25.
Uhuru, Conrad Matum is donating $25. Uhuru.
We are at 370. Oh my God, only 130 more to go.
Emily said, did my donation go through, but tell her that we will check.
Emily, we will check on your, it's to see if your donations went through.
Can you announce how much you donated, Emily, so we can put it in our total?
Oh.
$20.
Emily donated $20. Uhuru. So that's $395. So right now we at $395. We need $105 more. We have an anonymous donation of $100. Uhuru. I'm gonna put the extra $5. Uhuru.
Okay, let me see.
Yes, Emily's came through.
Yes.
You can tell her that.
Yes, Emily, your donation came through. Thank you so much. Uhuru.
Yeah, I was doing pretty good on totaling, but then.
Someone on Zoom with the name of iPad just said $25.
Thank you to someone on Zoom that with the name iPad for donating $20.
We have Jude Sock donated $25.
We have Judith
Judith.
Socks that's donated $25. Uhuru.
Dennis Skywalker said, I cannot pledge at this time. I used to volunteer at the book fair. I want to volunteer again.
Excellent. You can repeat that.
Huh? Dennis.
Dennis Skywalker will
Dennis Skywalker pledged he volunteered at Uhuru Furniture before, and he's pledging to volunteer again at the book fair. Uhuru.
I think we might have made it. Does anybody have the total?
Yeah, it's 500. Oh no.
Oh,
no,
great.
it's more than that. 25 iPad. So it was 495, and I donated an extra 5. That's 5, so it's 550.
Okay.
550, I think.
We've exceeded our goal. Thank you so much, but please continue to
Hold on,
donate.
we had some more donations.
Okay. So on Zoom, we have Emily Modris at $50 from Alpha Phi Omega
So
at Temple.
Oh,
Emily on Zoom from
Alpha Phi Omega.
Alpha Phi Omega donated $50. Uhuru.
Great. And that was going to be one of our volunteer teams that was going to come out today. So we're going to be doing a rain check for the volunteering, really, really soon. But thank you so much for that, from that donation from your organization. Really, really appreciate that. More coming in.
Alice donated $25.
Uhuru. Alice donated $25.
Uhuru Alice. Susie.
Susie O donated $25 as well. Uhuru.
Susie. Both Susie and Alice were going to be participating in our volunteer project. So thank you so much. We're going to look forward to working with you very, very soon.
Jessica Saffel donated $10. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Jessica. That is a fantastic response. Do we have any questions? Anybody?
Amir Farrington donated $50.
Uhuru. Amir Farrington donated $50. Uhuru, Amir. The donor administrator at Uhuru Furnitures and Collectibles. Bring all the nice quality furniture in.
Yes.
Okay.
Uhuru. So we do, if anybody wants to say why they wanted to, make these important donations and that we so appreciate, or why you chose to, come to this particular event on Martin Luther King Day, please put it in the chat. We will read it. Any other questions or comments, we are open to entertaining those. Something else?
No.
Zoom, when will the event be rescheduled for?
Okay.
Okay, that segues right into our next thing, actually, right. Emily. So thank you so much. Here's what we are doing. We are going to make a bunch of different dates available. So what we're going to do is, because our goal today was to get 5,000 door hangers distributed. So what we're going to do is, for the next 3 Wednesdays and the next 3 Saturdays and the next 3 Sundays, we are going to offer collective volunteer projects. So on the Wednesdays, we're going to meet at 1 o'clock. It'll be 1 to 3:30 every Wednesday. It'll be noon to 2:30 every Saturday and every Sunday for the next 3 weeks. And if that doesn't work for you, if none of those times work for you, get in touch with us, and we can work out another time, especially even if you have any number of people from 2 and above, we can work out a separate time with you to go out and volunteer. So we're not going to try to pull everybody together at the same time. We're going to divide it up so that everybody can do it. And that's the way we will be able to get our 5,000 door hangers out. So if you want to, if you have a time you want to set up now, you can either put it in a chat or you can reach out to us through our email, which is philly.volunteer@uhurufurniture.org, and we're going to put that in the chat. Or you can call us at our phone number, which is 215-546-9616, extension 3. So you can reach out to us in any of those 2 ways, you know, any of those 3 ways, either through the chat, you can say now when you want to do it, or we can make a time. And we did send out an email to everybody that registered, got an email with those dates. So you can respond to that email. That is, you know, we also really, really want to appreciate everybody. And I'm so sorry we had to cancel. It just was too prohibitive to send everybody out on such a, not just cold, not just rainy, but 20-mile-an-hour winds. And so it like blows the door hangers off the doors. So it would have been really self-defeating. So we want to just go forward, and we really want everybody, we will make a time with you. Please put that in the chat, or if what I said wasn't clear, put that in the chat. A few more, go ahead.
Okay, so Emily, APO wants to help more immediately in the community we are living in. And also to register or learn more comment from President Yesterday from AMWO. To register or learn more about the African People's Socialist Plenary, go to apsplenary.org to register. And to learn more about the African National Women's Organization, go to AMWO.org.
What was the
Thank
question
you.
from Emily?
It was just a comment.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it. Got it.
So thank you so much for that information, President Yesterday and Emily. All right, so we here now?
I guess so. Is it? So that's, so nobody else, no comments or questions?
So do we have any more comments or questions? All righty, well, if there's nothing else, Uhuru means freedom. We really appreciate everyone who came out, who registered to volunteer, who donated, and who will come back another day and volunteer. Okay, before I end, we have a few more comments. Kayla M. Paul, I just wanted to say it was a really great and informative session. Thank you. Thank you so much for your comment, Kayla. All right, and Zoe, thank you for hosting this event. Oh, you're welcome, Zoe. Thank you so much for bearing with me. It's my first time being thrown in the limelight, whatever. So, and Antoinette, thank you so much for her comment is thank you so much for this program. We really appreciate you, Antoinette, and thank you for your comment. Layla commented, thank you so much for such a great event. Thank you, Layla, for participating and joining. Emily Ann, thank you so much for this session. It was really informative and excited to get involved very soon. Thank you so much. And Monica, such a successful MLK Day program. Uhuru, Monica. Susie, Uhuru, can't wait to help put the door hangers. We can't wait till we put them out too, Susie. Thank you so much, Uhuru. And Judith, thank you. Great job as a host and MC. Thank you so much, man. Like I said, this is my first time, and hopefully I did okay, but we got the message out, and And Chris, Uhuru back, Chris.
And I just want to also announce that we do have orientations for new volunteers every Thursday at 5:30, and that is in person and on Zoom. And we really want to encourage everybody to come to an orientation. You have, not only do we have the door hanging of volunteer projects, but we have volunteer opportunities in every single aspect of the show. We have social media, we have our live sales, we have community outreach, we have sales assistant, operations assistant, we have Enzo painting. There's tons of ways that people can participate as a volunteer. The Uhuru Furniture itself is open Wednesday through Sunday, 11 till 6. We get a truckload of new, all donated furniture every single day. And that Bub leads that whole team and really makes it happen. And, you know, we just really want to welcome and urge everybody to participate by shopping, donating, and volunteering, and appreciate everyone so much.
Uhuru, so we have a couple more comments. One more comment from Michelle. Looking forward to future volunteering. Thank you for this event. We're looking forward to you coming and volunteer, Monica. Michelle, I'm sorry. We need volunteers is what make it happen here. And all right, so if that's all the questions, Uhuru.
What do we do? Offer programs of liberation for African self-determination. Uhuru means freedom. Uhuru means freedom.
Uhuru.